When someone decides to distance themselves from you, when they choose silence over communication, when they avoid you even though you gave them everything, it cuts deeply. You feel invisible, unworthy, unwanted. You start to question yourself, wondering what you did wrong. But that's a trap. Because the truth is, their avoidance says more about them than ever will about you. When you try to chase someone who's emotionally unavailable, you are stepping out of your power. You are making their approval the measure of your worth. And that is where most people lose themselves. Powerful thing you can ever do when someone avoids you is not to fight for their attention, but to withdraw yours. Ignoring an avoidant is not revenge rooted in anger. It is self-respect in motion. You see, who avoid connection are often driven by fear of being seen, fear of being vulnerable, fear of losing control. Run from emotional intensity because it reminds them of pain they haven't healed from. But you cannot heal someone by proving you are safe. You cannot convince someone to love you deeper by chasing them harder. When you chase, you validate their story that closeness equals suffocation. You reinforce their pattern. But when you stop, when you pull your energy back and stand tall in your silence, you disrupt that story. You show them that love doesn't mean pressure. You show them that you have boundaries, that you have dignity, that you are not afraid to walk away from half love. Ignoring them doesn't mean you hate them. It means you refuse to betray yourself anymore. It means you're done begging for emotional crumbs. It means you've learned that your time, your energy, your peace are sacred. The moment you stop explaining yourself to people who aren't listening is the moment you reclaim your power. Silence becomes your greatest teacher. When you don't respond to their mixed signals, when you don't feed into their games, when you stop giving them the emotional reaction they expect, you start to rise because your silence communicates something words never can. It says, I know my value, and I don't waste it on someone who doesn't. Every time you respond to an avoidant person's distance by chasing them, you teach them that withdrawal works. But when you stop, when you ignore the push and pull dynamic, they are forced to sit with their own emptiness. They begin to realize that the control they thought they had is slipping. Ignoring them doesn't just protect you, it exposes their own emotional immaturity, and that's the real power shift. Because now, instead of trying to win them back, you're focused on winning yourself back. You stop obsessing over their approval and start pouring that energy into your healing, your goals, your growth. That's how real transformation begins. Revenge is never about making them feel pain. Best revenge is showing them that their behavior no longer affects you. That their silence doesn't define you anymore. You don't need to explain what they did wrong. You don't need to prove anything. Live better, love deeper, and shine brighter without them. Because the truth is you can't make someone choose you, but you can choose yourself every single day. When you turn your focus inward, when you redirect your energy toward becoming the best version of yourself, something magical happens. The pain that once felt unbearable becomes fuel. The rejection that once broke you becomes redirection. You stop seeing them as the loss and start realizing you're the blessing they couldn't handle. Ignoring an avoidant is not about playing games. It's about ending them. It's about saying, I'm done giving my energy to people who can't meet me halfway. It's about reclaiming your emotional independence. Because when you stop reacting, you start leading. You start choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion. You understand that not everyone can love you at your level of depth, and that's okay. Some people need to lose you to understand your worth. But by then, you've already moved on. You've already become someone who no longer needs their recognition. The strongest move you can make is not to prove them wrong. It's to stop caring whether they ever see you right. You stop needing closure from them because you've already closed the door yourself. You start realizing that peace is more valuable than validation, that silence is more healing than confrontation. You no longer chase clarity from people who thrive in confusion. You no longer try to fix someone who runs from emotional intimacy. You simply let go. Go is not giving up. It's growing up. When you stop chasing, you regain perspective. You begin to see how much of your emotional energy was being wasted trying to hold on to something that wasn't meant for you. You realize that love shouldn't feel like walking on eggshells. You realize that real connection doesn't require you to beg. The moment you ignore an avoidant, you break the cycle. You show yourself that you are not addicted to inconsistency anymore. You're choosing stability, respect, and peace. That's not revenge, that's evolution. So when they notice your silence, when they sense that your energy is no longer available, they'll feel it. And that's when they start to question themselves. They wonder why you stopped trying. They wonder what changed. But by that point, you're not even trying to prove anything. You're too focused on becoming unstoppable. That's the beauty of detachment. It gives you your power back. It reminds you that you don't need to be chosen by anyone to feel worthy. You are already enough. You stop waiting for their apology. You stop checking if they noticed your absence. You stop rehearsing the same conversations in your head. You let it go. And when you let go, the universe fills that space with something better. Better people, better peace, better energy. Because when you finally ignore what drains you, you make room for what strengthens you. This isn't about revenge in the traditional sense. This is about self-mastery. The best revenge is peace. It's the ability to the same situation that once broke you and feel absolutely nothing. No anger, no need for closure. Just gratitude that you learned, that you grew, that you survived. You become untouchable. Not because you've built walls, but because you've built wisdom. And that's what ignoring truly means, is choosing growth over drama, freedom over attachment, and self-love over self-sacrifice. In the end, ignoring an avoidant isn't an act of cruelty. It's an act of clarity. You stop chasing someone who hides, and instead, you start embracing yourself. You start honoring your emotions, respecting your boundaries, and valuing your peace. When you no longer chase love, love finds you. The kind that doesn't run, doesn't avoid, and doesn't fear your depth. And that's the moment you realize that ignoring them wasn't revenge at all. It was your rebirth. When someone avoids you, when they suddenly withdraw, ignore your messages, or act like you never mattered, your first instinct is often to chase after them, to fix what went wrong, to get answers. You want to understand why things changed, why their warmth turned into distance, why someone who once cared now acts like you're invisible. That pain can eat away at your confidence. Wondering if you're too much, too emotional, too needy. But what you must understand is this: you are not the problem. Their avoidance has nothing to do with your worth. It's a reflection of their own fear, their inability to face emotional connection, their lack of emotional maturity. And the most powerful thing you can ever do in that moment is to stop chasing, stop explaining. Fighting for someone who doesn't even know how to fight for themselves, ignoring them, is not weakness. It's strength disguised as silence. Avoidant people thrive on control. They pull away to test your reaction, to see if you'll chase them, to feel secure in knowing that you care more. Every time you respond to their distance with pursuit, you feed their pattern. From their belief that love equals pressure, that intimacy equals danger. But the moment you stop, the moment you choose silence over chasing, everything shifts. Suddenly, the control is gone. They can't feed off your reaction anymore. They start feeling the discomfort they've been running from. Ignoring them makes them face themselves, and that's something they rarely do. To look at their own emptiness, their own ability to connect. And while they're left sitting in confusion, you're busy finding peace. Your silence speaks louder than any words ever could. When you ignore an avoidant, you're not punishing them, you're healing yourself. You're saying, I will no longer give my energy to someone who runs from it. You're teaching them and yourself that love isn't about chasing, it's about mutual effort. The most powerful form of revenge isn't anger or confrontation, it's indifference. It's when you reach a point where you no longer need to explain your worth. You just live it. You let your silence, your calm, your growth do the talking. Nothing unsettles an avoidant more than realizing you're not waiting anymore. When they see that you're not reacting, when you stop trying to reach out, when your energy turns inward, feel your absence. And that's when the shift happens. They begin to wonder why you're so calm. They start to feel the loss of your attention, your care, your presence. But by the time they realize it, you're already focused on yourself. You're building your life back piece by piece, stronger than before. That's what ignoring really does. It frees you from emotional dependency. It turns your pain into power. It transforms your heartbreak into healing. At first, it won't be easy. You want a text. You want closure. You want to be seen, to be heard, to be understood. You'll crave that validation. Every time you resist the urge, you reclaim a piece of your strength. You begin to realize that closure doesn't come from them. It comes from acceptance. It comes from saying, I deserve more than someone who can't show. You start understanding that your peace is more valuable than their attention. The person who avoids you is not your loss. They are your lesson. They show you what happens when you ignore your own needs just to be loved. But once you choose yourself, once you stop chasing, that's when you start attracting something far better. Ignoring and avoiding is not about games. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about choosing not to waste energy on someone who isn't emotionally available. It's about sending a clear message. Fix broken patterns. I'm here to grow. And that's what transformation looks like. It's not loud. It's quiet. It's in the moments when you stop explaining yourself, stop defending yourself, and simply walk away. That quiet confidence becomes your strength. Because when you ignore what doesn't serve you, you make room for what does. Every second you spend chasing someone who avoids you is a second stolen from your healing. You cannot build peace in a place of uncertainty. You cannot find love in a space of fear. When you stop chasing, when you ignore, you give yourself permission to breathe again. You rediscover your focus, your drive, your clarity. You begin to feel the power that comes from not reacting. You start to understand that the real victory isn't in making them regret losing you. It's in not needing them anymore. The best revenge is when you no longer care if they come back. When your happiness no longer depends on their approval. That's freedom. People often mistake silence for weakness, but it's actually the highest form of strength. It means you no longer need to prove yourself. You no longer feel the need to convince anyone of your worth. You've accepted that not everyone will understand your heart, and that's okay. You're not here to be understood by those who run from depth. You're here to live authentically, to love fearlessly, to grow endlessly. Ignoring and avoiding allows you to shift from emotional chaos to emotional control. It helps you create space for inner peace, for self-love. And once you taste that peace, you'll never want to give it up again. Let them wonder. Let them sit in silence. Let them realize what they lost. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. You're no longer trying to change them or make them see your value. You're showing it through your energy, your actions, your boundaries. Ignoring them is not running away. It's standing firm, refusing to engage in a dynamic that hurts you. It's saying, I deserve a love that stays. And the beauty is when you focus on yourself, you start to glow differently. You become magnetic. You attract peace, success, joy, and new connections that match your energy. You start doing the things you once stopped doing because you were too busy worrying about them. You pour that same energy you used to spend chasing into your goals, your growth, your healing. And soon the pain that once kept you awake at night becomes a memory that reminds you how powerful you truly are. Ignoring them is not revenge. It's release. You're releasing their hold over your emotions. You're releasing the pattern that kept you stuck. You're releasing the version of yourself that believed you had to fight to be loved. You stop living in response to their behavior and start living in alignment with your worth. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You start to see that peace is not something they can give you or take away. It's something you create within yourself. And here's what happens next one day. They will come back. They'll test the waters. But this time you'll be different. You won't be waiting. You won't be angry. You'll simply be unmoved. When you found peace within yourself, no one's silence or absence can disturb it. You'll respond with grace, or not at all, because you no longer need anything from them. Power, not control over others, but mastery over your own emotions. So when someone avoids you, don't chase. When they pull away, don't react. When they go silent, don't beg for answers. Let your silence speak. Let your peace answer. Because ignoring them isn't about making them feel small. It's about making yourself whole. The best revenge will always be growth. The quiet confidence of knowing that no matter who walks away, you'll always have yourself, and that will always be enough. When you care deeply for someone who suddenly starts pulling away, your heart can feel like it's breaking in slow motion. You can feel the energy shift. The warmth becomes cold. The communication fades, and the connection that once felt alive now feels distant and empty. You try to reach out, to talk, to understand, but they retreat even further. And the more you chase, the more they run. That cycle can destroy your peace if you let it. One thing that can completely change how you handle that pain, learning the power of ignoring them, not as a weapon, but as a shield. When you ignore someone who avoids you, you're not being cruel. You're reclaiming your energy. You're taking back the control that their silence tried to steal from you. Avoidant people often operate from fear. They fear being vulnerable, fear getting hurt, fear losing themselves in a connection. So when things get too real, they distance themselves. It's not about you being too emotional or too intense. It's about them not knowing how to handle intimacy. They want connection, but they also want control. And when you chase them, when you try to reassure them, you feed their fear. You make them believe that love means pressure, that closeness means suffocation. But when you stop chasing, when you withdraw with calm and self-respect, something powerful happens. The balance shifts. They're no longer in control. You are. Ignoring an avoidant person is not revenge. It's redirection. You stop pouring your energy into a relationship that can't grow and start investing it back in yourself. You remind yourself that your value doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from knowing you are enough. When you go silent, you break the pattern. They can no longer use distance to manipulate your emotions because your silence becomes stronger than their avoidance. You stop being predictable. You stop reacting. And when you stop reacting, you become powerful. There's a deep kind of peace that comes from no longer trying to force connection. Peace of realizing that you cannot lose what's not meant for you. The more you let go, the more you find yourself. You begin to see how much energy you were given to someone who couldn't even meet you halfway. You realize that real love doesn't require chasing. It meets you where you are. When you ignore them, you're not punishing them. You're protecting your heart. You're saying, I refuse to be an option. I refuse to fight for what should be mutual. And that's not pride. That's self-worth. It's normal to want to reach out. It's normal to want answers. But you can't heal by reopening wounds. You can't grow by returning to the same pain that broke you. Ignoring them means choosing silence over chaos, clarity over confusion, healing over habit. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, you send a message to them and to yourself that your peace matters more than their presence. That's where true power begins. Because power isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering your emotions. When you ignore an avoidant, you take away their ability to trigger you. They start to feel the emptiness their avoidance creates. They start to wonder why you stop trying, why you seem so calm, why you stop reacting. Your silence becomes a mirror that forces them to see themselves. And while they're stuck analyzing your absence, you're evolving. You're healing, focusing on your goals, rediscovering what makes you feel alive. You start doing the things that make you feel whole again. That's how you win, not by making them regret leaving. By showing yourself that you can thrive without them, your silence becomes sacred. It becomes your boundary. You no longer explain your worth to someone who doesn't value it. You no longer chase conversations that end in confusion. You no longer fight battles that only leave you drained. You understand now that ignoring them isn't an act of bitterness. It's an act of balance. You're choosing to stop feeding a cycle that only breeds anxiety. You're saying, I choose myself, and that decision changes everything. At first, the silence may feel uncomfortable. You'll miss them. You'll miss the connection. You'll replay memories in your head and wonder if they're thinking about you too. But then something inside you starts to shift. The silence that once hurt becomes peaceful. That once scared you becomes free. And you realize that their absence isn't a loss. It's space for healing, for reflection, for growth. The more you honor that space, the stronger you become. Ignoring someone who avoids you doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring correctly. You start caring for yourself instead of trying to fix someone who isn't ready to be fixed. You stop needing them to see your worth because you already see it yourself. You stop craving their attention because you've replaced it with self-focus. And when you reach that point, it can shake you anymore. Their silence no longer stings. Their distance no longer feels like rejection. You start seeing it for what it truly is, a reflection of their inner fear, not your inadequacy. They might try to come back once they notice your detachment. They might test you, send a message, or try to get a reaction. But you'll be different now. You won't be moved by their inconsistency anymore. You'll respond with calmness, or maybe you won't respond at all. Because when you found peace within yourself, you don't need closure from anyone else. The same person whose absence once broke you will no longer have the power to disturb your inner balance. That's what healing does. It transforms pain into power. Ignoring them isn't about coldness. It's about clarity. It's about understanding that not everyone is capable of meeting you emotionally. You stop personalizing their behavior. You stop making it about what you did wrong. You realize that you could have done everything right and still not been enough for someone who isn't ready for real connection. And that realization is freeing. Taking off a heavy coat you didn't realize you were wearing, you can finally breathe again. As you grow stronger, your energy changes. You start attracting people who value presence, consistency, depth. You stop craving the emotional roller coaster of avoidant relationships. You begin to crave peace. You start seeing how much beauty there is in being alone, how much strength there is in standing firm, how much joy there is in your own company. And slowly you realize that ignoring them was never about hurting them. It was about healing you. The person who avoids you may never understand the depth of what they lost, but that's not your responsibility. You've outgrown the need to be understood by those who cannot meet you. Your silence will echo louder than any words you could have said. It will remind them of the peace they once took for granted. But by then, you won't be looking back. You'll be too busy moving forward, building, growing, loving, and living, because the best revenge was never about showing them what they lost. The best revenge was always becoming someone who no longer needs to be validated, someone who can love deeply without losing themselves, someone who can walk away with grace instead of anger. You stop playing their emotional game. You stop reacting to their distance. You stop trying to make them see. You simply let go. Ignoring them becomes your final act of self-love. It's you saying, I choose peace over pain, self-worth over attention, growth over comfort. And when you truly mean that, when you live that truth, you become untouchable. Their silence no longer controls you because you've learned the art of peace within your own. The moment you stop needing to be understood by the wrong person, you open the door for the right one, the one who will never make you question your value again. And that, more than anything else, is the greatest victory of all. There comes a time when you have given everything you could to someone who constantly pulls away, someone who loves halfway, someone who keeps you guessing. You give them patience, compassion, yet they meet it with distance and avoidance. You try harder, hoping your effort will make them stay. But all it does is exhaust you. And at some point, you realize that the only way to regain your peace is to stop trying altogether. That's when ignoring them becomes your power move. It's not revenge born out of bitterness. It's strength born out of clarity. When you ignore and avoid it, you're not trying to make them feel what you felt. You're choosing to protect your energy from being drained any further. Avoidant people often fear closeness because deep down, they equate intimacy with danger. They may have learned early in life that love leads to pain, that vulnerability leads to rejection. So they build walls and call it protection. But in doing so, they also block out real connection. And when someone like you, someone capable of deep love and openness, comes into their life, it threatens their sense of control. They start to retreat. It's not your fault. Defense mechanism. Yet when they pull away, it triggers your instinct to chase, to prove your worth, to fix the distance. That's the trap, because the more you chase, the more they withdraw. It's a pattern that leaves you powerless until you finally break it. And breaking it begins with silence. The moment you decide to stop chasing, you change everything. Ignoring them is not about pretending you don't care. It's about showing that you will no longer fight for someone who doesn't fight for you. You stop reaching out, stop over-explaining, trying to decode mixed signals. You simply stop feeding the cycle, and that's when the energy shifts. The same silence that once hurt now becomes your armor. You realize you don't need their validation to feel whole anymore. You stop living in reaction to their behavior. You start living in alignment with your own peace. The truth is, ignoring them isn't cruel. It's necessary because while you were busy trying to understand them, you forgot to understand yourself. You forgot what peace feels like. You forgot how it feels to wake up without anxiety, without overthinking every message or every silence. But the moment you pull your energy back, you remember. You rediscover your own power. You realize that not everyone deserves access to your heart, and that's okay. You learn to give your energy only to those who can meet you where you stand. At first, it's going to hurt. You'll miss the connection. If it's inconsistent, you'll replay the good moments, wondering if they miss you too. You'll feel that urge to reach out just to feel seen again. But every time you resist, you heal a little more. You choose silence over chasing, you reclaim another piece of yourself. Because ignoring them isn't about punishing them. It's about teaching yourself that you can survive without the attention you once craved. You can love without losing yourself. You can let go and still be whole. When you go silent, they'll notice, maybe not immediately, But eventually, avoidant people are used to being pursued by others trying to fix them, trying to pull them closer. When you stop doing that, suddenly they no longer have control. They start to wonder why you stopped trying, why your energy feels different. That curiosity turns into confusion. While they're trying to figure you out, you're already growing. You're not waiting anymore. You're healing, rebuilding, becoming stronger than before. Power, not the kind that comes from making someone regret losing you, but from reaching a place where you no longer care whether they do. Ignoring them teaches you self-control. It teaches you emotional discipline. You begin to understand that not everything deserves your attention. Not everyone deserves a response. You start to protect your energy like it's sacred. Because it is. You realize that peace is not something people give you. It's something you create. And once you've tasted that peace, you won't trade it for anyone's inconsistency ever again. You'll stop needing to prove your worth to people who are blind to it. You'll stop trying to earn love that should come freely. You'll start choosing yourself even when it feels hard. Begin to focus on yourself, your goals, your passions, your growth. You channel the energy you once spent trying to be enough for someone else into becoming the best version of yourself. You start to glow differently. Your confidence returns. Your energy shifts from needy to magnetic. You stop begging for attention and start attracting it effortlessly. People can feel it when someone truly values themselves. They can feel it when your peace is no longer negotiable. And yes, they might come back. They might text, call, try to reconnect once they sense your detachment. But by then, something inside you has changed. You no longer crave their validation. You see the situation clearly now. You understand that someone who avoids you once will likely do it again. You know that their return doesn't mean transformation. It means curiosity. And you've outgrown the need to entertain it. You've learned that peace is worth more than attention. That silence is more healing than chaos. That walking away is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do. Ignoring them doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you started caring smarter. It means you understand that chasing love is not love. It's desperation disguised as devotion. You no longer confuse availability with affection. You no longer confuse mixed signals with mystery. You see everything as it is, not as you wish it to be. You see that your worth was never tied to their behavior. You were always enough. They just weren't capable of seeing it. As you continue to ignore what drains you, life begins to open up. You attract people who want to stay, who don't run when things get real, who don't play games with your heart. You find relationships built on openness, trust, and presence. You realize that ignoring an avoidant was never about hurting them. It was about healing you so you could finally receive real love. Because you can't attract what you deserve if you're still attached to what hurt you. You stop needing closure because you've already created it. You stop needing their apology because your healing no longer depends on it. You stop reliving the past because your future looks brighter. That's what ignoring truly gives you. Space to grow, room to breathe, the freedom to move forward without looking back. You finally understand that forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. It's the final release that allows you to live unbothered. When they think of you again, when they remember your calmness, your presence, your energy, they might finally realize what they lost. But you'll already be far ahead, not in arrogance, but in peace. You've learned that the best revenge is not attention, not anger, not trying to prove anything. The best revenge is becoming someone who no longer reacts, someone who lives fully, loves deeply, and walks away gracefully. You don't ignore them to make them feel small. You ignore them because you've learned to feel whole. And that's where true strength is born. In the silence that follows self-respect, in the calm that follows release, in the confidence that comes from knowing you are enough, ignoring them becomes your quiet declaration of power. It says, I'm done explaining. I'm done chasing. I'm done shrinking. It's not the end of love. It's the beginning of self-love. You no longer need to be understood by the one who avoids you because you finally understand yourself. You stop needing their presence because you found peace in your own. And that peace, once earned, becomes unshakable. It becomes your greatest victory. It becomes your ultimate revenge, living free, calm,